Whoop. Thank you, Nelson. Good morning, everybody. My name is Dave Finale, and this is Real Estate Talk TGIF, and it's episode 290. That is 287 weeks in a row. We've had a couple extra shows, but here we are. It is December 29th, 2023. Everybody's getting ready for their weekend of New Year's and all that crap. And and then what I'm looking forward to, Bob, is when I'm at the gym next week, all the new faces and the crowds. I'm really looking forward to that. I once had a friend say to me, Dave, we should open up the gym, and in the first few weeks of the year, it's a gym, and then after the third or fourth week, we change it over to a bar. And I said, that sounds like a great idea to me. Anyway, enough of that folderol. Dave Finale here. I'm with Bob Lachance, who is the founder and CEO of Riva Global. He's done a lot of different things in real estate, but before, actually played with a stick on some ice. We're going to be right back, and we're going to talk about this. Hit the video, Nelson. Real estate agents, are you looking to acquire clients consistently to grow your business and income for a great lifestyle? Well, this is Dave Finale, and I'm here to bring you the Real Estate Skill Builder broadcast, Real Estate Talk TGIF, brought to you by Real Estate Skill Builder and the Modern Agent team. Good morning, everybody. Again, Dave Finale here, Real Estate Skill Builder, njheroesprogram.com, which is what brings you this wonderful broadcast today, 290, Real Estate Talk TGIF. Bob, good morning. Thanks so much for being on the broadcast.
Hey, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. You're right down the street of me, so how could I not be on the show with you?
Exactly, man. So we both have a lot of wisdom. Maybe I've been around 1 or 2 years longer than you have. But age does not mean anything as well as experience. But the one question I do ask everyone that starts to start this broadcast is, what does TGIF stand for?
Are you asking me?
I am asking you. What does TGIF stand for? It's the first question I ask everybody, Bob.
TGIF Fridays. I mean, that's it. It rings a bell right then and there. So I don't know. Let's go. Let's get it done.
So anyway, it means for today and for this broadcast is, thank God it's finale. So here we are.
I love it.
So that's how we start. So Bob, you went to a great school. You played hockey, professional sports, and then you got into real estate. Talk to me about that journey and what that looked like and what that felt like. I know you played in another country as well, other countries. Talk to me about your journey and how some different sides went your way and everything, so you were able to get to where you are today.
Yeah, it's funny. 2-second rundown. I mean, the reason why I got into real estate, to be 1,000% transparent, is because I left school 2 classes short of getting my degree, and I did not want to go back, and I didn't want somebody to tell me what I was going to do for the rest of my life. So if I got a job, I would be owned by somebody, meaning,
right,
you would always have that fallback position, right? If you have it, and again, I have 3 kids, and I'm going to have them all go to college. Hopefully they all get a degree. But for me personally, I was kind of a different type of person. I didn't want that degree because I didn't want a fallback position. I always wanted to be the one that, almost had you're backed in a corner and you had to fight and win. So that's kind of a little bit of my personality on that side of it. But to take a step back and answer your question, I went to Boston University for 4 years. We were fortunate enough to win a national championship in 1995. Obviously, you could tell the grays on my chin. We were just talking about wisdom a little bit.
Yeah.
And then after that, I signed with St. Louis Blues I played in their organization, 1 exhibition game in the NHL, and then played in the minor leagues 4 years here in the U.S. and then four more years in Europe. And towards the end of my career, I kind of felt that, you're either not going to make the NHL or you're going to make the NHL. So it's one of those things, you have a pointed decision in everyone's lives on what path to go to, right? I know you talk to a lot of your students, you talk to a lot of other EXP agents as well, trying to figure out where they want to go in life and what's next. Right. We all have a pointed decision. So for me, my pointed decision was either go back to school or jump into an industry that had 0 barriers of entry. And guess what? Anybody could do real estate. So that's why, for me personally, that's why I picked real estate.
So you went into real estate and you started to do a lot of different things. And the first thing you did, of course, was you became an agent, right?
Yep. So I didn't become an agent at the beginning. What I did was I first learned about what farming areas were. And obviously that's what agents do, right? They drive around neighborhoods and they farm different areas and they do direct mail. They do a lot of different stuff. For me, it was on the investing side. So I was looking as an investor before I got my real estate license, though. I got my real estate license in 2005. I started in 2004. So to your point, that's what I did right after I kind of learned about what real estate was.
Right.
But anyway, I drove around neighborhoods and I saw properties that, had long grass, needed a new roof, windows, old house properties, etc. I saw one property that was listed. I thought I was a rehabber. I didn't know anything about real estate. So I called that property that was listed. I was listed for 185. I made an offer, I think it was 130. And they accepted. And I'm like, uh-oh. I didn't know what to do. And then, all of a sudden I'm a rehabber, right? So I had a little money put away from playing hockey, but I didn't have the full amount. So I had to go find a broker back in the day, and I found a contractor, etc. Put the deal together, ended up making 32 grand in about 2 months time, which is fantastic. But I also realized I had no systems, no processes. I didn't know anything. We didn't have these podcasts like we do now, and the education that you give and other individuals as well. We didn't have that back then. So I kind of was going off the seat of my pants.
Right. So, all right. So you just went around, figured you'd be an investor. You'd find something that was not being taken care of, et cetera, and do that. All right. So you start doing that. Then as you went, you move forward, you got more into real estate. Talk to me about that transition and to everything else.
Absolutely. So obviously the individuals that are listening to this podcast, it's important to see where you start is never where you end. So if I go back, I did that first rehab and I looked at myself in the mirror and I'm like, you know what? I have no systems. I have no processes. I have no marketing. I got lucky, right? I drove around neighborhoods, and that's not really the best use of your time, right? So I joined the local real estate investment association. They started talking about, hey, the reason why you want to get your license is two things. You have access to the MLS. You also have opportunity to make money off certain things. So that's when I started looking at that. I also did take a class with a pre-foreclosure, which is short sales back in the day, right? An individual. So I got sold into that. I would have bought anything. You got to realize, I would have bought absolutely anything. I was your best buyer back in the day. I still am. I invest so much money in education and masterminds and things like that. Now, you and I talked a little bit about that, prior to this. But for me, I jumped in. I bought the product. It was a product on short sales and how to do them, etc. And I also, the next RIA group, Real Estate Investment Association group, I looked around and I asked, hey, who is the best person in Connecticut at short sales? And they pointed at this one individual, 5 different people. So I went up to him. His name is Pat. I said, Pat, you don't know me. I'm not looking for a job. I'm just looking to join a team. I want to work with someone who's the best of the best in Connecticut. I want to learn from ground up. He goes, you know what? I'm actually looking for an acquisition specialist. And I had no idea what an acquisition specialist was. So I'm like, all right, cool. He's like, I need somebody to door knock. And I'm like, all right. I came from the locker room into the business world. I didn't even know what door knocking was, to be honest with you. So he gave me a list of pre-foreclosure properties with a script, very minimal training. I went door to door from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. every Monday through Friday, knocking on doors. People open the door, slam the door on me. I'd have to go through my pitch, my script. But I started getting a little, momentum, right? So got a couple properties under contract. And then what I did is I replaced myself and I added someone else in there as a door knocker, and I started negotiating with banks. So before you know it, I'm working on 100, 200, 300 files at one time, negotiating with banks and understanding that whole process. Him and I became business partners. And then in 2005, like I said, I got my real estate license the first time. And then I also helped start an education program doing short sales. So, we were doing a lot of them at the time. So we knew kind of the cutting edge of stuff. And then, while I was investing in properties as well, I had my real estate license. I was negotiating short sales and also doing a coaching program. And then in 2007, that program kind of took a different turn. And then we helped start another program called Fortune Builders back in 2007, like I said. And that was brand new. They just started investing and created a wholesale course, rehab course. And then they asked if we wanted to be partners. I said, sure, let's do it. We had no idea where that would actually turn into, which turned into a very, very sizable, really great financial education company through the years. And then, like I said, while I was doing short sales, while I was doing coaching, while I was doing investment, and then fast forward 2013, I got introduced to one of the companies that I own today is my virtual assistant company. So I didn't know what a virtual assistant was back in 2013.
Right.
So I actually hired my own to build, to do different stuff, building buyers lists, calling sellers, driving in leads, etc., for my real estate company. So then a light bulb went on. I said, you know what? This could actually be a business. So 2014, I launched my first virtual assistant company. Again, well running and helping on the coaching program and well investing in real estate. Fast forward today, I had a little over 1,000 virtual assistants. In my real estate investment company, we did 240 transactions last year. This year, I think we'll be between the 180, 200 mark when it's all said and done.
So, all right. So there's a lot to unpack here. I want to ask you several questions on what you just said and talk about it a little bit. Well, just as an aside, I got to ask you this quick question. What was the first program you ever bought? I mean, coaching program or how-to program? What was the first one you ever bought?
It was a gentleman. He was an attorney, David Wisnett. Wisnett, I might butcher his name, but it was all about real estate, but all about nothing. So it was a course like literally this thick, and I went through everything, page by page by page. That's why I farmed areas. I had no idea what that meant, and that's why I did that.
Yeah, the reason I ask is my first one is some people will remember Carlton Sheets.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Carlton Sheets. It was cassettes, right? It was cassettes and a book and stuff. Just wanted to ask that as an aside. So, guys, we've been doing this for a really long time, right? We've been listening to this stuff for a really long time. We are the ultimate consumer when it comes to this shit. So, just want to ask that question. All right. So, when you got into door knocking, you were actually told what houses to door knock on, correct?
Correct. So, my business partner after that, but the individual I worked with would give me a list of pre-foreclosure. Those are so in Connecticut, and those are people, and obviously where you are too. When they stop paying their mortgage, it's public record. So he would download that list, give it over to me, and I would door knock those individual houses.
Okay. So the reason I asked that question is the way I did was that basically everybody talks about, we're going to be on the phones, we're going to go door knocking. A lot of the door knocking that most agents do, Bob, around here is cold door knocking, where they're picking a neighborhood and they're knocking on doors, right? I've never been a fan of that. I don't teach it. But what I do teach is what you're talking about, which is target door knocking.
Yep.
It could be expired. It could be somebody expired. You can take a list of who expired a year ago and never listed. You went to pre-foreclosures. You kind of made your chances a little bit better because it was targeted, right?
Yep.
And then you went from there. So, all right. So you built your real estate business through this. Talk to me more about how that built up and what were the trials and tribulations you went through there.
Yeah, so a lot of the same thing. We had targeted lists that we go after. We door knocked. We also did direct mail. I also, when I door knocked, I would go home and skip trades. So I think that's some of the things that you talk about, which means for those of you who don't know what that means, I would go home, I'll get that list, and I would go back in those 411.com or white pages, and I would actually put that address inside, the web form or whatever it is online, and a number would come up, and I would also call them. So a lot of the same things that you're talking about, it would be targeted. So that targeted would also be, I would try to get a phone number, and then I would call them, say, hey, I stopped by your house today, blah, 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 right? So also, and I would do some direct mail to those things, and I would always do a leave behind. So the takeaway, obviously, for the agents listening to this is if you're going to spend the time going out to somebody's property, make sure you leave them something so they can connect with you. Because a lot of times they don't want to answer the door because they feel threatened or scared or whatever. But then they'll call you back, or they'll fill out your form online if you have a website, etc. So
when you talk about a leave behind, and it's going to sound like a really stupid question.
Yep.
Where are you putting that?
I put it. I heard, and I don't know exactly how this works, but do not put it inside the mailbox. I know there's some laws there. Never. So I would literally just, if the door was open, I'd put it on the bottom of that front door, screen door or whatever it was. I would put it right there, or on the front steps. Okay,
so I want everybody to realize what he just said. He put it if there was a front door, you could put it right there and lean it against it. That's where he was, or he put it on the front steps. And the reason you did that, I'm going to assume and make the statement so that they would see it.
Correct. So they're walking wherever their main traffic is, wherever they're walking, put it right there. And I would
Right.
use a plastic a plastic folder. So on the front they would see it, right? And then they would walk by and open it. So that's what I would do.
Yeah, and the reason I asked that question, I know it sounds really, really, really simple, but a lot of people talk about door knockers, and a lot of people don't use their front doors, right? They go into a garage, a side door, or whatever, and they'll never see that door knocker, right, or whatever hanger, whatever it is. Anyway, okay. So talk more about the process, because what you've just told me, you've talked about target door knocking, you have a leave behind, and you skip trace, and all of that is all follow up. So you basically were a system, and you basically perfected the system. Is that right?
Yeah, and you said something that's very, very important. And where on my investment company, we make probably 80+% of our money is on the follow up. So a lot of individuals, what would happen is any competitor I had, they would just stop by the door. And if they never answer the door, they had a zero follow up, which means they would just hit that lead or that potential prospect once without following up. I don't know what your statistics are, Dave, but in our office, it takes anywhere from 7 to 12 touches for someone to become a client of ours or to get that property in our contract, etc. So I don't know what your statistics are, but that's what we're seeing.
Interestingly enough, 12 is the magic number, and
12.
I've always heard it, read it, the marketing rule of 12, where you get like 2% on the first shot, 3% on the second, third, 4%, and it goes up. But the majority of the results are between 5 and 12.
Yep.
Right. You just said, I think 7 and 12. So, so we're very consistent in what we're talking about. And the other thing you said, which I really want people to really take hold of, 80% of your business and money came on follow-up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Guys, if you ain't following up out there, you ain't shit. You're not gonna make the money. You're not gonna have the success. Therefore, you're gonna allow yourself to be more distracted and not be able to get where you want to get. Hey, look, everybody talks about the new year. Straighten up, let's go and level up to your business. All right, so go ahead.
Yeah, and and here's the thing. I know someone's probably thinking this in their mind. If you're a solopreneur, you're like, how the hell do I do all this myself? So this is where I use virtual assistants. I know I have a VA company, a virtual assistant company, but if you're going to kind of multiply what you do, you're only one person, right? We have to look at systems. We have to look at process. We're in the age where systems and processes are everything, right? We need help. The days of the solopreneur or the what's the word I'm looking for? The lone wolf are pretty much over. We need teams to work with to help each other make money. That's why the EXP model is so cool, right? You have individuals helping you and you build your line where you can make residual income. I'm an EXP agent as well. So I think it's a really cool model and a really cool structure in how that happens. But you need individuals to help you. For me, on my investment side, I use virtual assistants to do everything from driving in leads to following up because those are the things that really take your time. If you're doing cold calling, Dave, you know this. If you're cold calling all day long, you're going to quit because it beats you up. It's tiresome. It's just something that, you only have so much time in your day, because if you have a listing appointment and you think about, cold calling to find more prospects, you're not going to be on the phone because you have that listing appointment. You're a one-man show. You need a team. So again, this is where the virtual assistants come in to take away and take over some of those tasks that you need to do.
Right. And I will tell you that my production is with this broadcast as well there's a virtual assistant helping me. And it's always, here's the thing. I'm able to do a lot more with that person. His name is Nelson. He's on here. He's listening.
Yeah.
And he knows exactly how I want things done. He knows that, what I need done, and he anticipates a lot of different things, and also knows how to keep me in line, which is really important for an assistant. I mean, I've had admins over the years when I had my brokerage, etc. To me, this is an asset and something. So talk to me. Okay, so new agents talk about, I want to get someone to make calls for me. And honestly, Bob, I've never been one to agree with that process as a new agent, right? Oh, you know what? I don't want it. I want listings, but I'll hire somebody to make calls. Does that make sense, or is that?
No, I know where you're going with this, and this is actually a very good point. So for me personally, when I was door knocking, this is to your point, I think everybody should go through the pain of doing something first before they pass it on, because I wouldn't understand how to train somebody to door knock for me if I didn't do it myself. And my whole mindset was I want to learn something from ground up so then I understand how that business is run and one day become a real business owner. Because if you want to outsource everything right away, you're never going to fully understand or even run a business the right way because you don't feel the pain. Everyone's got to feel that pain to understand how to help. Let's say if I'm helping somebody take over a task and I never felt that pain, how am I going to teach them when they have pain? Right? I'm going to read a book. Like it just doesn't work that way. So that's for me personally. So going off of what you just said, I agree.
Yeah, and I mean, look. Also, the one of the things that's really important is you need to spend time with your assistant, both
Hmm.
virtual and in your office. You got to spend time with them. It's the same thing. It's not like set it and forget it. It can't be because the direction's not there. You need to give them leeway to do things, and that's through building a relationship. It's okay to use the word the employee relationship as well. So talk to me. You've got Riva Global. I want to talk
Hmm.
about that. I want to talk about that because that's one of your main businesses. You developed it. How do you put it together with real estate agents and others? How do you set it up? How do you tell them how to get it going?
Yeah, so it's pretty interesting. So, and we talk about this. I talk about this a lot about virtual assistants. A virtual assistant. I mean, we're in a virtual world now, right? Let's call it what it is.
We
COVID
are.
has COVID. So I started my company obviously way before COVID, right?
Right.
So I was a little bit of ahead of that curve. So for me, it was second nature to to feeling comfortable of working with someone not in your office, right? So that's a lot of individuals like, whoa, I got to work with someone virtually. It's the new norm. It's just the way it is, right? That's why you have a lot of, even in the United States, work from home. My company's all out of the Philippines. So all of my virtual assistants are out of the Philippines. So I have a team over there that manages, so also hires, recruits, trains, places, and also manages the virtual assistants for clients like myself and like you, right? That do every different task from helping with listings to transaction coordinating to taking podcasts like this and cutting them up and throwing them on social media. So social media branding, everything. We have property management VAs, like virtual assistants could do anything that Americans can do that are not sitting in your office, which is pretty much anything from lead generation to prospecting to transaction coordinating, etc. So that's just a little bit of that side of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes 100% sense. And one of the things, the reason I asked the question and talk about it so much is that I work with a lot of new and newer agents and agents that are stuck. And the tone I hear is the whining tone where they whine about having to do this, that, and the other thing.
Yeah.
And they just don't want to do it themselves. And I hear so many people, well, I'm going to get, you know what? I believe those people, most of them will be out of the business next week,
Yep.
the new year, where their dues
Mhm.
are their dues are need to be paid. But so with the virtual assistant and with your business and the way you talk about it, you talk about scale, efficiency, and time freedom, right?
Mhm.
Those are the three things you've talked about, and I've seen in a lot of things that you have. Um, when you start thinking about scaling, Bob, when you started
Yep.
thinking about it, what was the most important thing before the VA, before that stuff? You wanted to scale, okay?
Yep.
What was your thought process on scaling your business? Because there's a lot of agents out there doing, some say that they're doing 10 deals and they should scale. I mean, I don't think you're ready yet. I think you
Mhm.
can do consistently 20, 30, maybe even 40, and then you can scale from there. Does that make sense? And where did
Yep.
you go from there, from that point?
So scaling can be different for everybody. So I've worked with investors and agents that they wanted to scale from one deal a month to two. Some want to go from two to four. Some want to go from five to 10, right? So scaling has to be controllable and it's got to be, and I've heard you talk about this. When you set goals, they have to be hittable. I don't know if that's a word, but these goals that we set for each other and for ourselves, they have to be realistic because if they're not realistic, you're kind of pissing in the wind on half of them, and it becomes demotivating
Right.
rather than motivating. And I think that's a big problem. I'll tell you, for me personally too, we have quarterly consultants come in for both of my businesses, and sometimes I'm setting these goals up here, and I'm like, there's no damn way I'm going to hit these. So it's demotivating rather than hitting a goal here, which is. So I had a consultant come in. They said 30% is a very good goal to grow every year. So don't go 100%, 200%. 30% is what she sees around the country. She meets with companies like yourself, myself, different types of businesses. And the 30% mark is the goals that we should probably set a little bit higher going into New Year's.
So, all right. So, do you think it's better instead of setting lofty goals, should you set intermittent goals?
Quarterly, 100%. Yeah. So it would be, you start with quarterly and then you chunk it down per month and then chunk it down per week. So if it's tasks that you want to do, you have to say, all right, if I want to outsource, cold calling, right? Think about this.
Yes.
You have the step number one would be, and these are all tasks that take our time. We need to figure out what list that we want to prospect. We got to figure out how to get those phone numbers, right? Those are two tasks that we have to, and those are goals to hit. If you figure out what company to use to get those lists, that is a goal to hit, and that's a good thing. Second is figuring out phone numbers. And as soon as you got them, what do you have? You have the list plus phone numbers. What are you going to do next? Are you going to set up working with a virtual assistant, or are you going to get a dialer, right? And dial yourself, or take your cell phone and dial those numbers. Those are all tasks to hit. Check, 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 check. That gives you momentum to be rocking and rolling and getting things going. So that's what I would recommend to do when we look at the entire scope of what we want to do. It's really getting started is a big part of what we do.
Right. And there is support, just for people listening, there is support to get the information that we're talking about. It's not that you're going to have to go and reinvent the wheel and start from one place and go to another to set these goals. So just to phrase it differently, we're going to set an annual goal. I'm going to set an annual goal, and I'm going to do what we call reverse engineer it back to a quarterly goal, to, as you said, monthly, then weekly. And that'll give you your tasks for the day. To help you with time. There's a lot of systems out there that will help you. They're not free, but there's a lot of systems out there. Systems such as LandVoice, RedX, Espresso Agent, Vulcan 7. These are dialers and information sources, but they do a really good job in getting you information. Some are better than the others. I'm not gonna say which ones I prefer, but I will tell you that if you're looking to save money, today and tomorrow are the days to get something done with the RedX because they've got super deals. I'm not saying that because I'm a RedX fan or even a RedX customer. I'm saying it to try to save you money, because when you start thinking about it next week, the price is going to double and you can save money. So make a decision in the next couple of days where you want to go with it. Like I said, it's not an ad for them. It's an ad for you, for people watching this. And I don't want to take a lot of time talking about it, but I think it's really important that people not panic when they start saying, oh, okay, I got to do this every day, because that's what's going to happen next week and the week after. What do you think?
Yeah. And we could overwhelm ourselves. That's why, that's why the plan that you're talking about, you set with the annual and then you break it down to quarterly. It helps us get, take all of that pressure, anxiety, all that kind of stuff off of our shoulders. And it allows us to implement it and get things done to where we could get into a momentum, because momentum is a great thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I talked to, like I said, I talked to a lot of different people. They get, well, I want to be able to, I have someone recently that I started working with that says, my 10-year plan is to have generational wealth for my children, yada, yada, yada. I said, that's fantastic. What about 5 years? What about 3 years? What about 1 year? What about 1 month? Right. So it's really important to have your vision there, because long-term vision is very important, right? Because it's going to give you your why. Because in that one statement from this one agent, I know what her why is.
Yep.
He said generational wealth for her family. It's very simple. Her why is her children.
Yeah.
And you need to remember that, right? Bob, what's the best way to learn all this stuff?
I would say there's so much stuff online, right? Obviously, listening to your podcast, there's so many different podcasts online to get that. But I'm huge on education right now. I am now, not when I was back in school.
Right,
it's
me
a little
too.
different. Yeah, it's a little different now. Now I'm a firm believer that somebody if they want to get somewhere, they should invest in their education, whether it's a mentor or a coaching program. This is for me. All right. This is what I've done. This is what I've seen over I'm almost on my 20th year of investing. Right. So this is what I've seen. I wish I could go back and know what I know now, because I would have jumped more into getting educated quicker and finding a mentor and finding a coach. That's what I would. Again, my background is sports, so that's why for me it's a lot easier getting help right away rather than saying, you know what, I'm just going to try to figure it out myself. Because and Dave, I've looked at this and I've seen it. I see different coaching programs charge a lot of different money, but look at school. I have 3 kids in school. I'm paying over 70 grand a year for my daughter to go to prep school, right? 1 year. Now, if I took that $70,000 and invested into a coaching program, that's 1 year of learning how to make money immediately, right? Think about that. You have a business in a box and a coaching program. And this, again, I'm just saying this because this is what I've seen over the years. And I know what I'm paying now for my kids to go to school. And I'm like, did they really learn anything? So I don't know.
No, I agree with you. I mean, there's so many books out there, and I'm a firm believer in books. As you can see, I've got a few behind me. I've read most of them. I use Audible, so that's been a big help for me.
So do I. I love it.
And it's just really important. And people, when they're working out, they're listening to books, they're listening to music. I think once a week in their workout, they should not listen to anything, but have the headphones on. I do that half the time, which is crazy, I know, but I have it on because it allows me to really concentrate. Okay, so we're talking about your VA company. I want to talk about your pre-foreclosures, your short sale transactions. You started working with, I believe you mentioned Fortune Builders at one time, and then there's Perch Rock. So talk to me about all these things because they're exciting to me.
Yeah. So when I first started, obviously, and when I first jumped in the business, I was a rehabber. Then I just want to say this in this real estate journey, what you start doing is typically not what you end doing. Okay, you learn so many different things. You get introduced to EXP type programs. You get introduced to, maybe you jumped in, you want to be an agent, and in 2 years you start saying, you know what, if I want generational wealth, like you were just talking about with one of your students, then you need to start buying properties to give you cash flow. Because I'll tell you one thing, and I never realized this: 19, 20 years goes by, boom, just like that. And I would love to go back and say, I could have started buying properties and holding them, and I wouldn't have to do anything for the rest of my life. Again, that's not how I'm wound. I'll always do something. But if you start with a goal of buying one property to hold one time a year, I would already have, 19, 20 properties already cash flowing $20, $30, $40,000 a month, right? If you just do that. So that was that's my point to exactly what you just said. So that's important. So going back to what you asked me about the process. So I started in short sale, or I started as a rehabber. Then I jumped into short sales. Then while I was doing short sales and fixing and flipping properties, I also started a real estate education program. And then while I was doing that, that's when I started my VA company in 2014. So I stopped working with Fortune Builders, was it right around COVID? So middle of COVID. Then I focused just on my VA company and my real estate investment company, which is Perch Rock. Today I do not do short sales. I outsource them to somebody else because it just takes a lot of time. And there aren't many around right now today. That could change, but today it's different. On the investment side, I do more wholesaling and kind of wholetailing, where you get a distressed property, I buy it and then resell it, or I sell the rights to contracts. But that's a whole different, obviously, system there. And I work with a lot of agents and investors, etc.
So you just want to hit one thing you said. You talked about short sales. There are not a lot of them around. That's true. It could change. What is your theory on how they might change?
So it's a tough one because
it is.
Everybody refied back. Yeah, everybody refied, and not everybody. The majority of us refied when rates were at 2-3%. I mean, we're obviously higher now. So if somebody stops paying their mortgage, they still have a ton of equity. We have a lack of inventory out there. So a lot of people have a bunch of equity, which means that banks will just foreclose on you and take your property back because they're like, hey, who cares? I will take that back, resell it, and make money. That's not a short sale situation. Short sale situation is when the debt is like the property's worth 300 and your debt is 350, so you got to negotiate the debt down. So that's what a short sale. It's an over leveraged property. So I don't see that. And again, I don't know, but I don't see that happening anytime soon because of the lack of inventory there is out there, and a lot of us refied out, at a rate that was low.
Right.
So
Okay. So talk to me about the difference between wholesaling and flipping.
okay, wholesaling is when you're an investor, you get a property under contract, let's say for $200,000. So I get, you're a seller, Dave. I get a property under contract. I say, all right, I'll give you 200,000. You're happy? Okay. And then now I go over to a buyer, an investor buyer, to say, hey, I got this incredible deal. $200,000 under contract. I'll sell it to you for 230 grand as an example. So you're selling the rights to that contract. That buyer comes in, takes your spot, gives you $30,000, and then now is going to buy your property for 200. So you, as the investor, the wholesaler, make $30,000. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. It
Okay.
makes 100% sense.
So as an investor, though, as a rehabber, let's say your property needs $50,000 worth of work. I get it under contract for 180. I put $50,000 in. I buy it, close on it, get title insurance, get all these different insurances. It's just like a regular purchase, like you're living in the house, but then I fix it up and I put, $40, $50, $60,000 into the property. So now you take, the 180 plus whatever your rehab costs are. And then now you list it on the open market through an agent or yourself. And you try to get probably $300,000, $400,000+ for that property. And then there's your profit.
Yeah. Different. Great. So are there as many wholesalers out there as there are flippers?
Oh yeah. It's funny. A lot of people, a lot of individuals don't see that, but there are a ton out there because it's very easy to make money that way. Meaning you don't need money. You don't need access to money because you get a property under contract and you sell the rights to that contract. So the barriers of entry a lot less than being a flipper, fix and flipper, because you need access to capital, whether you're going to buy it with your own money or you're going to borrow that money, both the purchase and rehab.
But don't you have, as a wholesaler, if you're going to buy it, let's say that 200, right? Don't you need to show assets that you can actually close on a property unless they know you're going to flip it?
A lot of sellers don't ask.
Yeah,
a lot of sellers, if it's not on the market, like agents know this stuff, right? Because you're going to say, all right, give me proof of funds. But a lot of sellers, if you go direct to seller, they majority of the time don't ask for a proof of funds to buy the property.
Okay. So it's basically you're bypassing the agent, you're buying the piece and you're flipping. Do you actually never close yourself?
Correct. You're selling the rights to that contract. That's all it is. So you're selling the contract. So Dave, you're buying my $200,000 contract for 230 as an example. So I make that $30,000 spread and you purchase it for 200.
So at the closing, you're getting your 30, they're getting their 200.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
And there's got to be like 3 teams involved in that. Now, when I'm just talking about intricacies, and I'm talking as a complete novice in this game,
yep.
right? So the purchaser of the wholesale property, not the wholesaler, the purchaser, he's going to want to do inspections. Does they have to work around you? I mean, how does that all logistically work out?
So if they want inspections, then you have to set it up with the seller. Say, hey, listen, I have a partner buyer coming in. Someone's going to loan me the money. It's how you actually set it up. It depends what you're talking about with the seller. You say, listen, we want to do an inspection just for informational purposes only. You get them in there, they do their inspection, and then they come back.
Okay, great. So that all works that way. All right. So we've gone through wholesaling, which seems very simple. And flipping is more. There's a lot of anxiety when it comes to flipping because of the money. Because of what are you going to find? I mean, I always tell people, well, a renovation, you never know what you're going to find, right?
Correct.
You never know what's going to happen. So you better be very, very careful in what you're doing and really have a good idea of what you're doing. Getting started with this, it's all about, being in the right frame of mind, the mindset, right? Have you ever had difficulty with that? And if you did, how did you get out of it?
Yeah, I think everyone goes through that, to be honest with you. For me, I don't know if we talked about this. Back in 2005, I had a knockdown rebuild where me and my partner lost $150,000 and a knockdown rebuild, boom, overnight. Now you talk about mindset, talking about getting beat up, talking about, dusting yourself off and getting up and saying, shit, how am I going to, repay this money? I put on a home equity line of credit back in the day. And it's like,
Right.
75 grand is a lot of money. So I was responsible for 75. My business partner was. You just The way I got out of it is I had a team, right? I had an individual that I could lean on and say, dude, what the hell are we going to do? All right, here's what we need to do. And then it's just more of a brainstorm. It's a coach, it's a mentor, it's a coach. It's relying on somebody that will pick you up, not beat you down. Because if I had the wrong person and we lost money and we're like, well, woe is me, and we were just kind of drowning in our sorrow, it would have been very difficult to get out of that. So I guess the takeaway is be around the right people, because it's like crabs in a bucket. You got to get rid of all those crabs and separate yourself, because if you're around the wrong people, man, it's going to be very difficult for you to get out of anything that's mindset related if you're with the wrong people.
So is one of the things that I try to help people out with is I try to have them a couple of things. I talk about morning ritual. I talk about calendar, schedule,
Mm-hmm.
the whole thing. And my morning ritual is probably nuttier than most, but I read, I write, actually a little meditation. Got to try to do more of that as time goes on, because it does help. And then I have a schedule, right? How important is that schedule? And people will say, well, I don't want to be stuck to the same thing every day or whatever. How important are those two things, the ritual and the schedule?
Well, the one thing I have to say is the older we get, the more we talk like we're talking about right now, right?
Right.
So you get more of a schedule, because when you're younger, you're going up to see your pants. You got all different types of motivation. You got different types of energy. That's just how that works. Part of the game. I think the older you get, it's more important. But I'm a huge fan of having a schedule. Like for me, I wake up at 5:30 in the morning. I go work out. I come back. I get my kid to school. So now you start getting. I go to the office by 9 o'clock, and if my kids have a hockey game, I'll leave work and I'll be able to go, because you can do what you want in this business when you want. But I am all scheduled. So all of my meetings in the morning time for my virtual assistant company are between 9 and about 11. And then I'll have a podcast or something. And then I do all of my real estate towards the rest of the day. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on. But to answer your question, I 100% believe you should have a schedule. And I think part of it should be, there needs to be some exercise in there. Like you said, I know you talked a little about exercise before. That does help clear your mind. It helps you feel better, gives you more energy.
Yeah, no, my ritual starts that way. I'm up at 4:15. I'm at the gym by 5. I'm doing my reading and stuff by 7:15, and I'm ready to rock and roll at 8. I'm making calls. It's in the morning. I know what I'm doing 4 Wednesdays from now, 4 Tuesdays from now. I know what I'm doing. Does that sound like it's boring? Well, it might, but here's the thing. It allows me to disable distractions. And that's, I think, something that everyone needs to do. Talk to me about the access that people can have to your virtual assistant company. How do they get to it? How does it work? If someone's interested in getting virtual assistants and they want to employ Riva Global, talk to me how that works. What's the process? I've been involved with a company like this similarly over the years. I know how they work. Talk to me how Riva works.
Yeah, we've one of the reasons why I started is because of the pain in the process of hiring, right? So Dave, I know you've hired before, and you go through resume after resume after resume, and then it just takes hours upon hours, and it's very painful. So my team in the Philippines, what they do is every single day we're interviewing applicants, right? Meaning virtual assistants. So they're going through every month hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of applicants that want a virtual assistant role. And once they go through all those applications, then they interview them. And then once they get through the interview, then they hit our training team, right? So then they train for about a month on different tasks. So now when you raise your hand, you come to our company, you go to rivaglobal.com, you get on a strategy session with my sales team, our admissions team, and she walks through exactly what you're looking to do in your business, we do disc profiling and and predictive index. So then now what we do is like Match.com. Once you raise your hand, you say you want to work with us, then we put you on 3 different interviews with 3 virtual assistants that fit that personality profile that you want. Because a transaction coordinating virtual assistant has a different personality than a cold caller. And that cold caller is a different personality than, let's say, a bookkeeper, if you will, right? So they're all different types of personalities. So we've done a very good job at perfecting to put you on interviews with the correct individual, the correct personality. And then as soon as you interview someone, you say, yes, I want to do it. Now we move you off into our operations department. So now you have, we call it a client service manager that helps you manage the virtual assistant as well to make sure that they're hitting the goals that you set for your team member, which is your virtual assistant.
Right.
And you know, if you want to add on, if you have any questions, you want different types of training, they can help with that as well.
Right. So you're not only going through the process, the person hiring the VA, but they're also going through the process. Is there training for the person hiring? Is there training for the agent that wants a VA?
We have set training. I always like to call it the 80-20 rule. So our VAs are trained on the 80% of what your business is and 80% of mine, but the 20% is the magic, right? You do 20% something different in your business, and I'll do 20%. So the stuff that we have to give as the individual using the VA. So for instance, if you're using a different CRM than I am, right? You got to give them a little bit of extra training on that CRM. Just like if you hire someone in-house, it'd be the same concept.
All right, cool. All right. So what is the best way for people to get in touch with you or be able to hire Riva Global?
Yeah, it's obviously if you want to ask me a question personally, you could go to my email. You can email me at bob@rivaglobal.com, REVA global.com, or you can go right to my website, rivaglobal.com. Check us out. If you have any questions, like I said, set up a strategy session with my team, and then we could answer any question or help you guys in any way you need.
Hey, Bob, what's the most important thing we didn't talk about today?
Getting started. I think the most important part in our business is don't procrastinate. I know everyone says, all right, it's a new year, but I 100% believe that you're only going to reach any type of goal if you start. If you don't start, you're not going to reach any goal. And procrastination is probably the worst thing you can do in any business.
So how do you get away from procrastination? How did you do it? How have you done it?
Honestly, I worked with individuals like yourself, coaches, mentors, partners that would motivate each other to get going and moving the needle and setting those goals. So it's the people, like I said, I know we touched upon this before, but it's the individuals we allow in our sphere. Get rid of the crabs in a bucket. We don't need them. Get the right people on your team, and right people could be, you, Dave, me. It could be anybody that is a positive factor.
Yeah, I want to just add that I think we're talking about, we haven't mentioned it really, the A word, accountability. Accountability. Let's face it, Bob, and everybody else that will watch this and watching now. Accountability is the highest form of love, and I've learned that from the coaches that I've been involved with over the years. People say, well, you're a pain in the ass, you're busting my chops, you're doing this. No, you told me what you wanted, right? And that's kind of like when I take on a new client or whatever, I tell them, says, I won't chase you, you got to chase me. That's your form of accountability. And I want to give one other little tip, little pro hack. If you're working on making calls and you're getting distracted easily, number one, nothing gets done except calls for that time period. And number two, get a book, get a pad of paper, put it on the side of the table. And anything you think of, like, oh shit, I forgot to water the plants, it's going to give you an excuse to go do it.
Look what I got right next to me. And I've been taking notes since we were on the call. So
right.
I agree.
So it's like, like this morning, I do this every morning. I make a list, right? I make a list of things I have to do. Usually it's not this much, but you know what? I've actually taken it easy this week, first time in years. So I've decided I'm going to start getting rolling again and be ready to go when this week is over. But the thing I'm pointing out is, look, you got to have something next to you, because when you write it down, like I got to grease Weezer. That's from an old saying. I've got to do this. I got to do that. It's a way you're going to get distracted. And to alleviate those distractions, write down what you've got to do. You won't forget it. And it's automatically out of your head and you're back to your focus on the calls. That makes sense. That sounds like a good idea. You just showed you writing notes anyway.
I'll be honest with you, I love it. And I do the same exact thing. I think that's very, very important. Always carrying something around with you. And for me too, I do the same thing. If I don't have a notepad, I use my notes on my phone. So I'll type in different notes, different ideas. I put in my calendar. That's the only way to keep momentum going forward, I believe.
Right. And I want to point out one thing about notes on your phone. For me, one of the things I teach is learning the market. So when a new agent comes to me, it's sphere of influence. It's setting that all up. And it's also, how to talk to buyers, how to get buyer leads, but it's also knowing the market. A lot of people don't understand how to learn a market, right? They I know that town. No, you don't. The best thing is to make notes. And I say, do not use your phone. I say, write them down. I believe that this thing and a piece of paper are actually one of the best ways to learn. As another great coach I have has taught me, writing is the doing part of thinking. So I think that's really important as well.
And I do agree with you 100%. If you can write it down, it's a lot easier to retain when you write it rather than type it. I'm 100% agree.
Right. And I'm not saying because you mentioned it, I'm just saying because I think that it's really important. Look, technology has made our lives, honestly, more difficult. The reason I say that is it's just too many distractions. That's why it's more difficult, right? For me, my dad used to ride around with a briefcase full of pads, and every pad was something else. And yes, guilty is charged. I am now my dad, right? So, but anyway, Bob, I want to thank you so much for being on the broadcast today. If there's anything we haven't hit that you wanted to hit upon, tell me now.
No, I think we're good. I just want to, say thank you again. Appreciate it, and wish you and everyone else a happy New Year. And going into 2024, I just take action and get a coach, get a mentor, and follow your goals, and attain them and work your ass off, because I think hard work is the most gratifying thing in the end.
So, Bob, we've got your number, your email address, and your website, as well as your Instagram on the screen. Best way to get you, Bob, is your email and your website, correct?
Perfect. Yep.
Great. And everybody, look, we got another show coming up next week. We have the great Chelsea Hamray from Vancouver coming on next week, who is a dynamite agent, just an automatic win for everybody that watches. She's started from scratch and has done a great job. We have similar coaches and stuff. So Chelsea will be on next week. Really looking forward to that. And Bob, last but not least, man, I know, we got introduced through someone. And one of the things you had said that, do I get a hat? And I said, of course, everybody on the broadcast gets a hat. So we're going to be sending this hat out to you. Everybody, I want to thank you so much for being on the broadcast. Everybody, thanks for watching. Next week, again, Chelsea, if you have any questions, reach out, DM me or whatever, and DM Bob, find him on social as well. So thanks so much for coming on. Bob, stay on for a minute. We'll be right back with you. And everybody, thank you. Nelson, hit it.